Welcome to Pod of Jake, a podcast hosted by Jake. You can go to zerofjake.com to learn more about Jake and everything that he does, and feel free to email him anytime at jake@blogofjake.com or message him at zerofjake on Twitter or at Jake on Warpcast. Anyway, we thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please consider giving Pod of Jake a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate your support.
Thank you, Jason, for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time. You are the founder and CEO of Airstack and more recently launched Moxie, which has been taking over the Farcaster world and the Warpcast feed for better part of the last couple of weeks. So it's been really cool to follow. Congrats on all the early momentum and success. I haven't quite seen something like this on Warpcast or on Farcaster yet. So it's really cool to see. I think you guys are doing things sufficiently differently, and it's just a novel approach on sort of rewarding people for doing things that they're already doing in the Farcaster world. So for those who aren't quite plugged into Farcaster, I think, maybe come back to this conversation later and like go sign up for Farcaster and get involved first. And this will make sense sort of further down the line. But for those who are in the Farcaster sort of network and universe and spending time every day on Warpcast, I think this will be a cool opportunity to learn more about Moxie and Jason, the creator behind it. So with that said, I think the best place to start would be for you to share your story, for basically as early as you're willing to start to where you are today, and talk about some of the decisions you made along the way.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here, and really appreciate the nice words you said about Moxie. It's been an incredible couple of weeks. I mean, just been just overwhelmed with kind of the enthusiasm and excitement in the Farcaster community for Moxie, and super thankful. And obviously, we'll go into that. My story is I feel like I've kind of been breaking rules and kind of starting things forever. To put in perspective, I dropped out of college when I was 18 years old. I was one of the first 30 people to work on Bill Clinton's campaign for president in 1991. So that kind of dates me there. I worked on the Clinton campaign, it was insane kind of things I experienced doing that. I then worked at the White House immediately after we won the presidency, and actually finished college from the White House. I did something like 120 total credits I needed to graduate. I did like 80 from the White House. It was insane. And then I worked at the White House for 6 years, which is, a complete different role. The way I explain that is like, if you think startup life is hard, like I probably have never worked as hard as I did at the White House. I mean, it was, literally, nonstop, 7 days a week. I traveled with the president everywhere around the world. My last position was effectively chief of staff to the president's chief of staff, this guy Erskine Bowles, who was the president's chief of staff. And so I was in the middle of it all. I was actually working in the chief of staff's office during when Monica thing happened. So that was a crazy story as well. And then I left the White House to go to Stanford Business School when I was 28 years old, and went out to Silicon Valley. There's like the height of like .com boom, and got involved in startups. And then I even dropped out of business school once too. So I went dropped out of business school for a year to work at a startup I was really passionate about. Fast forward a little bit, I did some stints in some big companies, working on product management and kind of growth, and mostly product though, and really found my love as a product manager and really the product designer, I call myself. And then started my first company. So the first company I started was called Social Median. Was back before there was like the Facebook newsfeed or the Twitter timeline. We created a way to discover the internet based on what your friends are reading every day. It blew up really big. Like we had 6 million users within a few months. We sold the company after 11 months. Had a bidding war for the company. It was back before the App Store, so it was like you really could take off just like building a website at the time. And and then I went and worked for the acquirer, which was a company called Zing, which was probably most people don't even know it today, but at one point it was the LinkedIn of Europe, and had tens of millions of users all around Europe. I was the chief product officer there for a year. I basically fulfilled my obligation under the acquisition to be there for a year, help them reshape the product. Basically, like a theme of social, and as a business networking product, very similar to LinkedIn. And then I started a company called Fab.com, which was e-commerce. We really pioneered as a marketplace for design products. We were known for the design of our website and our apps as well as for kind of pioneering social shopping, and did a lot on kind of discovering products through what your friends are buying. So it's kind of like this recurring theme in my career is like interweaving social and kind of throughout various things. At one point, Fab was a unicorn. I mean, we were growing like a rocket ship. It went from basically from a cold start, we went to 120 million in revenue in the first 18 months. It was like unbelievable. And then we got crushed by Amazon. So we had that experience as well. Whereas at one point we were like superheroes, and then Amazon really took a shine to what we were doing. And in the first couple of years of Fab, it was like we would be curating products from designers and highlighting them on Fab.com and sending emails to and Facebook promotions to millions of people, and they'd be responding to it. And it would take about 45 days for the time that we discovered a product before it'd be on Amazon. And by the third year, it was literally 48 hours. So basically, we became like Amazon's curation team, and they were then just like they basically just crushed us. Like they would basically follow the products and the designers they were curating and put them on Amazon, take inventory, free shipping, free returns, and yeah, it was very impossible to keep up with that. We did have a private label furniture company that we built out of that called Hem.com, which was a subsidiary of Fab. That actually was based in Berlin. So I was living in New York during Fab, and I moved over to Berlin for several years. For a couple of years, we built up Hem. It's still going strong for several years. It's supplied much of the furniture you see in WeWork, and beautiful products, all private label, kind of built by designers, and kind of like really kind of a unique model. And then we sold Hem to a company called Vitra, which is a multi-billion-dollar Swiss-German furniture maker. And then in 2016, I went down the Ethereum rabbit hole and really said, I really want to build. The idea I had was I wanted to build a decentralized social network that would enable creators to keep what they earn, and for creators and their fans to support each other. Literally, that was the idea back in 2016. Which is what Moxie is trying to do today, right? Which is really interesting. And so we've been working on these concepts, essentially for the last 8 years, we've been working on. So the idea behind the company I started in 2016 called Peepo, which also we launched a protocol called OpenST, was to enable a creator economy where you had the fans of creators are supporting the creators, and kind of in a win-win environment where as the creators are earning, their fans are earning as well. And so that was like the concepts. We mapped out all these different ways that could work, and a whole bunch of like equations around it as well. And it was just too soon. So we realized, well, you can't have a decentralized social network if you don't have, let's say layer 2 or technology, because the transactions were too expensive on Ethereum to support it. You needed better wallets. You needed all sorts of better UX, and so we ended up building at the time a protocol called OpenST, which was one of the first protocols that enabled you to actually spin up layer 2 blockchains off of Ethereum. And we built also some of the first account abstraction wallets. And we launched Peepo as a kind of a pilot application, which was kind of like an on-chain TikTok, sort of like, if you think like what Dracula is today. We pioneered that in 2018. We actually had about 10,000 users, and every time they tapped the like button, it would send a token from the person who liked it to the creator. Pretty much everyone at like DevCon 2018, 2019, and all the ETH Global events were using Peepo and experimenting with it. But it was also just too soon, right? And we didn't see that we could get to scale on it. And so we put all that aside and set out over the last few years, we wanted to create the best, easiest kind of tools to enable developers to build amazing on-chain apps, and kind of this enabling infrastructure. And we're doing so with an eye towards, we have a passion for social, and if we see social taking off in a certain kind of corner of the on-chain world, we were going to lean into it hard. And so when we started Airstack a couple of years ago, we purposely went really deep on, we were going to support emerging on-chain social networks with our dev tools. So we supported Lens, we supported XMTP, we supported ENS, POAP, Farcaster. We were the first ones to really lean in hard on those and say, we're going to provide the tools to enable people to build with these ecosystems. And then increasingly what happened over the last couple of years is we just, I personally became very, very passionate about Farcaster as being the winner and being the one that we wanted to bet on. And I kept telling our team is, we were placing multiple bets, but ultimately for this to succeed, we had to place one big bet and just go all in on it. And so last year, we increasingly made Farcaster the focus, And the beginning of this year, when Farcaster launched frames, we just went all in. And we built some of the frames that had the most usage. We really learned given the kind of constraints of frames, how to build, decent user experiences in frames, start iterating with things. We built a swap frame that did, it was like several $1 million worth of swaps. And so we learned how to do transactions really well. We built a lot of things and kind of really pushing the limits of the kind of the user experience in frames. And then it was really in March that we said, okay, let's bring back all the concepts that we've always wanted to build in terms of a creator economy. We have this amazing Tableau with Farcaster. There's all these kind of Legos that we can build on in terms of plugging into Warpcast, making use of frames, of actions, of DCs, and the communities and the channels, and let's just go all in on it. And so, just fast forward almost to where we're at today is starting in March, we started rolling out a program called Nada Token, where it was a point system where we started to give people earn points every day based on who engaged with their content or who engaged with their frames. We did this purposely, that no one knew about it. They thought it was just a points kind of game, but we did this purposely, thinking that if we can get this to work, this would be like the kind of the foundation for a protocol to launch. And we ran that for 1 month and another month and learned from it and kind of then learn the next thing. And then we really felt by May of this year that we are set up well to launch this protocol. And then we launched on July 29th, and it's just been off to the races ever since. We can talk about what's gone into it, but that's that's my story so far. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. It's an awesome story, and there's so many different stages there. I'd love to go more into the White House and stuff, but I have a feeling most of the people tuning in probably want to talk more about Farcaster and Moxie.
Yeah.
So I'll stick in that realm for now, and we can do the White House talk another time. So when you made that decision to make that big bet, like you told the team, stop working so much on Lens and some of these other decentralized social platforms and just go all in on Farcaster, even before frames was sort of the thing that maybe made Farcaster look more obviously the thing to bet on. What was sort of your rationale, or even now, what is sort of your rationale on going all in on Farcaster versus these others that you obviously were building on and sort of probably rooting for all of it? You're probably rooting for decentralized social in general. What made Farcaster the standout for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's as you said, we were betting on decentralized social as a category, but we were looking to see would there be kind of a breakout winner that we should kind of go all in on. And having worked in social, I went through my career. I've worked in social essentially since 2008, and in various iterations of it. The one thing that I've learned over the years is that, frankly, the technology is not the hard part; it's the community that is. And what I saw from the day that I joined Farcaster, back 2 years ago, number 602, and from the day that I joined Farcaster, what I saw from dozens or hundreds of other social networks that I had joined over the years, every time a new one would pop up, I'd experiment with it and check it out. What I saw immediately was there was a real kind of a foundational community there. And even when it was only, a couple hundred people every day, it felt alive and it felt like people were supporting each other. And it felt like there was something refreshing and new here. And then you kind of unwrap it and you see, okay, well, the underlying technology actually will enable these developers to build pretty amazing things on it. So if we can kind of build from this, get the community to keep growing and to build it in a kind of a positive sum environment where everyone's kind of winning together, which is really what I really kind of saw with Farcaster as kind of the ethos. And then we do that, and then developers are able to build and extend and build and extend and build and extend, that I really saw that this had the opportunity to to take off. And it's funny, I don't want to knock anyone, right? So I want Lens to win, I want XMTP to win, I want everyone to win. But when I look at last year when we made that decision to go on a Farcaster, I just based it on every single day. I would use all of them, right? And say, where is their actual community emerging? Where is their actual genuine engagement happening? And then once Frames launched, it was just like putting, lighter fluid on top of something that was ready to, to kind of to go. And to me, like, I could not be more confident in the decision. I really think that, the long-term trajectory of Farcaster, and also, frankly, it's the team as well, is like the team has made smart choices. Not everyone agrees with them all the time, but the team has made smart choices that I think they're going to enable it to have, very successful and sustained long-term growth. And there will be blips and there'll be periods where people are like, oh, it's in a lull, or, maybe something happened and like, people, it turns in a different direction. And, Moxie is a new direction forward as well. But I have a lot of faith on the long-term direction of it.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting, I've also been on Farcaster for a while. I was 1020th person or something like that. And it's been like I started just by, cross-posting from Twitter, basically, just trying to like sort of bootstrap my own kind of like daily habit of using crypto social. And I signed up for Lens as well. And for whatever reason, that just sort of like quickly fell off. And I'm like you, I'm well, actually even more probably agnostic in that I am not building a company that's sort of very focused on one decentralized social network. I just kind of want decentralized social to work and to sort of emerge, as more popular versus some of these centralized social networks that we have that are dominant today. But I sort of like built my Farcaster habit that way. And now, 2 years, 2.5 years, whatever it is later, like I use Farcaster as much or more than Twitter, and I'm cross-posting more so from Farcaster, from Warpcast to Twitter than vice versa. And so like I really am primarily, decentralized socially active in terms of just how much I use these apps. So it's been
I would
really
say
cool to see.
Yeah, I'd say my behavior also completely flipped. I mean, obviously, I have amassed a massive following on Farcaster, and I've really committed to it. And I think I told our team, like, we're gonna not just build, but we have to be genuine builders on the platform as well, and really kind of commit our time to it and energy. And it's funny, I consider myself actually not to be an extrovert, and I've managed to become a Farcaster extrovert. I also I consider I've always said I'm really bad at shilling. I like hate it, and then I figured out like, okay, maybe I'm on Farcaster. I figured out a way to, I don't call it shilling, whatever, but like to promote what we're building. But I will say that I also have found that like I used to post something on Twitter and then also post it on Farcaster, and now it's always the other way around. It's always, like I'll post 100 things a day on Farcaster, and then maybe one or two of them I'll decide to share on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I again, it's not that I'm rooting for anyone to win, to lose versus win. It doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. But when we launched Moxie, we said we have to pick one. I didn't want to. I have people all the time reach out to me, investors, advisors, blah blah blah, and they say, "Hey, we should be broader than Farcaster." And I'm like, "Nope, we are entirely focused on growing this community, and we're taking the model that." If and when Farcaster wins, we win with it. And if we can be a catalyst for Farcaster's growth, and that's great, versus just trying to inject ourselves into everywhere. That's not our strategy. Our strategy is we are trying to be an essential part of the Farcaster fabric, and enabling anyone to benefit from what we're building and build on and extend it. That's, we built a protocol on top of a protocol. And that protocol the Moxie protocol will only be successful A, if people build on it, B, if people use what people build on it, and C, if Farcaster is successful. And I'm okay with that dependency because I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And it's funny, like before I did anything in terms of building in crypto, I would always look at people building on, Ethereum or Solana or whatever it is. And it's like even the probabilities of those, like L1s surviving and thriving in the future is like not a guarantee. I mean, you look at Ethereum, like there's an ETF now, like pretty good bet that it's going to be around for a long time. You don't have like the government risk that you used to have and some other things like this. But, Solana crashed like 97% in terms of price last year. Like these things are not to be taken for granted. And then on top of, so you've got like sort of Ethereum, and then on top of that, you've got Farcaster. And it's just, I think it's very bold when founders bet on these dependencies that are far from guaranteed. But in this case, assuming Ethereum is going to be there for a long time and assuming Farcaster sort of wins on the social front, then that just makes you guys, you still have certain things that you need to execute on yourself. Like it's not a guarantee, but there's a big risk reward basically. And you're doing that because of the reward.
Yeah, and I'd say, but it's symbiotic though too, right? Because I didn't want to build something where we just have a tremendous dependency on Farcaster. We're building something where the Farcaster community also will have a dependency on Moxie.
Yeah.
And so it's a symbiotic relationship, not a one-way relationship.
Yeah, and I think as far as I've heard so far, there's already a good number of people who are like signing up for Farcaster. They'll like hear you talk about Moxie in like a Twitter space or something like that. They're actually not on Farcaster yet, and so in that way, it's sort of you guys are helping Farcaster grow as well, which
Yeah.
goes towards what you're talking about.
I mean, look, when people ask me over the last, year or whatever, like what can we do to get more people to join Farcaster? My response is always, people will join Farcaster when their friends are telling them about something that makes it magical. And that magic for some people could be, I posted, on Farcaster and I got, all this engagement and, now I have all these followers and I built up my following. That could be part of it, right? And your friends hear, okay, I built up this, kind of, and it's like it's driving business for my, for my project, for my company, or whatever. But also, I think a big part of it could be that when people start telling other people, hey, you know what? I made $1,000 this week on Farcaster, right? And they say, well, how'd you do that? And you're like, well, just posting stuff that people really appreciated, right? And so instead of let's say the Facebook or Twitter model of social, where you're giving your content away for free and they're advertising around it, and so they're making money off of you. Instead, in this new model that we envision, which Moxie is trying to kind of really push forward, is that everyone's earning for their contributions, and everyone is participating in the success of other people and the communities as they're earning. That's really the foundation of Moxie, is how do we flip that model on its head? And that's really what we started thinking about back in 2016 when I founded this company Peepo, was to say, how do we flip the model on its head? So instead of giving away your content for free, you're earning, and the people who are helping you earn are participating in as well. And that's what we're trying to do here with Moxie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things that has driven Farcaster's success, which has been very different from some of these other decentralized social experiments, where it's been more of like sort of a flattened curve over 2 or 3 years versus like this big initial spike and then this big fall and then the thing kind of never rebounds. I think a large part of that is because it was just, they have this thing about I forget what they call it, like deliberate growth or something like that. And it's this strategy that they took from day one, like not to grow super fast, not to try to like bring everyone on at once. And it sort of worked. I think one of the reasons is like if you flatten that curve over time, the people who do come on build this daily habit. And like it's much different if you build a daily habit over 2 weeks for like this super hot app versus if you build a daily habit over a year. It's like very hard to give that up. It's like much more of a sticky sort of usage of the app every day. And so I think one of the reasons why they've been successful is actually because money hasn't been intimately attached to using Farcaster over the first couple of years. You look at other experiments like sort of like, BitClout or FriendTech or some of these more sort of money-oriented social apps, which are really interesting. Like I personally am very interested in these apps. I think it's super cool to be able to sort of like bet on your friends, invest in your friends, speculate on your friends, stuff like that. And they have a lot of sort of concepts that Moxie's sort of implementing. But both of those things were sort of like these big spikes, super popular, and then big crashes. So how do you think about like now, one thing that I think helps your guys' case is like this isn't something starting from scratch. People are already on Farcaster. They've already built these long-term habits. But how do you think now about attaching sort of money in a very intimate way into this thing that previously hadn't had money, at least as directly as attached? I think, is it fair to say like Moxie is sort of like the most direct attachment of money to everything that you do on Farcaster? And if that's the case, how do you sort of, beware the cautions of like previous experiments with attaching money so intimately to these social networks?
Yeah. So I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it as, so we've set this foundation that enables people to earn rewards, and for those rewards to be shared with the people who are supporting them. And I'll go into the details of it. And the key part here is we learned from all these things that came before, and we said, let's not just create, like first of all, we don't want to fail, right? So we want to create something that's long lasting. And for us, long lasting means, several years and many, many years. An important part of, if Farcaster is going to be around for 10 plus years, we want to be around for the next 10 plus years with it and to play an essential role in it. And so we said, we want to build something that's not just a flash in the pan, and it's something that contributes to Farcaster's growth, in a kind of I don't know, kind of in a sensible way, I think is the best way to put it. And so I'll go through some of the mechanics that we kind of thought through. So one is, the first thing we did is, the foundation of Moxie is fan tokens. And the idea with fan tokens is that anyone can become a fan of any entity on Farcaster. We started off with members and channels, but there could be other entities in the future. And when you become a fan, you buy their fan token. And the idea is that when that becoming a fan means you're supporting your friends. So it's like taking, it's kind of leaning into the community. You're every time that they're earning some kind of rewards, you're participating in their success as well. So it's like okay, I like engaging with this person's content, so I'm going to buy their fan token, and I'm going to engage with their content more and help their content get more viral, because I also share in, when they get rewards. It's like a positive sum, kind of helping each other. And then the way that we set this, we set this up with a couple of considerations in mind. One is the way that you launch fan tokens is first through an auction. And this was done so that it's not just like an open market of like buying and selling fan tokens from day one. And we didn't want to feel like it was just like, okay, we turned Farcaster into a stock market. Instead, we made it so there's a 3-day auction that enables kind of a fair price, like the market determined that anyone who wants to kind of get in at like a fair price, that you get whatever your maximum price you're willing to bid. If it's more than the clearing price, you'll get some of the fan tokens when they're launched after the 3-day auction. And then after the auction ends, the fan tokens go into the Moxie smart contract, which is like the big word, bonding curve. But what makes the Moxie bonding curve different is that we didn't go for an exponential curve like you have with friend tech, where literally it's just about speculating on your friends. Instead, what we did is we made it so that it's a very, very low slope logarithmic curve. And so the way it works, like if someone buys a fan token, the price does increase slightly for the next person who buys, and for someone sells, it decreases slightly for the next person who buys or sells as well. But it's not like these massive kind of like speculative spikes. And that's really emphasizes that you should buy fan tokens because you want to support your friends for the long term, that not just for like, day trading. And more so, that fits very well into a model where we really built a lot of this around enabling, third-party developers to come in and build all sorts of utilities, things that you get like benefits for being a fan. And that's really where we see like the value of this fitting into the Farcaster ecosystem. And this part, actually, I think I've been most kind of like pleasantly surprised or happy with so far. In just 2 weeks, we've had over 40 different apps and frames launched by third parties, and the use cases for fan tokens is just exploding already, right? So besides like, big players like Rainbow who've already integrated the fan tokens into Rainbow Wallet, we also have like real kind of utility, like AutoMod immediately enabling you to, if you want to moderate your channels, only fans of the channel can cast into it, you can do that. We have Be Early, which is an app that's widely used in Farcaster for kind of product waiting lists that you get to the front of the line if you're a fan. We have Stream TV that's launching any day now, a really cool app for live streaming and kind of video streams that you can only access if you're a fan. There's all sorts of like other use cases that people are rolling out. And that's really like, so going to really emphasize that you become a fan, not just to, play a trading game with your, with your friends, but you're doing so to, to support each other and to get access to special features. And we think that we're going to see really an explosion of those kind of special features that you get from being a fan, over the weeks, next weeks and months. There's so many developers that are building on it. It's really just kind of mind blowing and very humbling and exciting all at once. A couple other just considerations we did in the protocol, just to make clear to everyone, is one of the reasons why friend tech kind of fell over, besides just the fact that people rampant speculation because of these exponential curves, is that you had like people who didn't even know the people were coming in and kind of gobbling up all their kind of their keys. And so one of the considerations that we did was we really wanted to make this, as I said at the beginning, about the Farcaster community, kind of a protocol for the Farcaster community, owned by the Farcaster community, governed by the Farcaster community. And so the only way to participate in the fan token program is on Farcaster. And you have to have a Moxie pass, which is a soul-bound NFT, in order to interact with the Moxie contracts. The only place you can get a Moxie pass is in our frames on Farcaster. We started off that you can only kind of buy the fan tokens in auctions and after market in our frames on Farcaster. And even now, as we've opened up and allowed people to kind of see their fan tokens in Rainbow Wallet as the first example, and to buy and sell their fan tokens, we still have the same constraint in place where you still have to be a Farcaster member to participate. And you can imagine like the folks at Rainbow, great people and others are saying, "Hey, we got to open this up, get everyone do this." I'm like, slow down. Like the first step is we want to make this work for the Farcaster community. And then, if it makes sense down the road, we could look at ways to potentially open it up to others. But the idea is not just to have people trading. The idea is have people, Farcaster members, find value in owning fan tokens, and they realize that value before other people from the outside come in and, speculate on the value of these tokens. So that's been an important consideration of ours. And I'm really we're not wielding to any kind of like, I was pressure, but like we're really sticking to our guns on that. We really want to make sure that this is, for the Farcaster community and committed to that. And then the other thing that we did with so the way we have these everyday rewards that people earn as they're using Farcaster. And right now there's two major ways to earn these everyday rewards. One is just based on who engages with your casts. So we created this thing called FarScore, which really measures how much influence someone has across the Farcaster social graph. And so, and that influence is, if they like or recast or comment on your cast, how many other people are likely to also see it and kind of engage with it as well. And we've been, as I said, working on that for many, many months, and it works as is intended today. Like we'll always look at ways that we can maybe improve it or kind of tweak it, but right now it's working the way it's intended. And so people earn kind of Moxie rewards every day based on the engagement they get on Farcaster. So that's it's a positive sum kind of situation for the Farcaster community, right? So if people are creating more content that more people are appreciating, then the creators, the content creators are earning. And then the other way you earn is by building frames based on who engages with the frames. So now we have two major ways. If you either you're a content creator or you're a frame creator, and if people are engaging with the stuff, and both of those things contribute to the long-term success of Farcaster. And so if you're doing those things, you earn Moxie's everyday rewards. And when you earn the rewards, 50% goes to you as the creator, 20% goes to your fans, 20% goes to the fans of the channel that you cast into, if it was into, because the channels give you distribution for your casts. And then 10% goes to fans of the overall Farcaster network, which is like a way for people to just be overall supporters of the network. And then the way that we did this kind of like sharing of those percentages to the fans is through a unique model that buys and then burns more of those fan tokens. So rather than just giving people dividends, which runs into like securities and things like that, instead what it does is it just increases the price of that fan token a little bit more for the next person who wants to buy or sell. And then we have a number of folks who reached out to us and said that they'd like to offer kind of everyday rewards with Moxie. And we've got a few things we're going to be announcing over the next couple of weeks as well. So we're going to be extending beyond just these two first ways with new ways as well. And last thing, I'll shut up and let you ask questions. But the cool thing about this is like, you don't have to, reply, say tip 500 or tip 1,000, which I always thought was kind of spammy and kind of not a natural behavior. Instead, it's just looking at the engagement that the content gets or the frame gets and like allocating the rewards. And then the market, Moxie has a publicly traded token now, and the market is essentially funding the rewards, because we allocated a percentage of the Moxie token supply just towards, we call it Farcaster engagement mining, and the market is funding our ability to provide those rewards. So you think about like there's a public market out there that's giving us the kind of the fund, like the value to be able to grow Farcaster with Moxie.
Yeah, no, there's obviously a lot covered there, but I think the funny part to me is like, you can go really, really deep here on understanding all of this, but to your last point, you actually don't really have to do much of anything in order to participate. So you can sort of like go in as much as you want to. And it's interesting too, you talk about like, commenting tip 500 or whatever it is. I'd always envisioned like, okay, maybe like Warpcast will build in a button that's like a tip button or something. Yeah. And this is actually sort of the next level beyond that, where you don't even have to click a different button. You're just clicking
You're
the like
already
button.
clicking the button.
Exactly. Like it's
Yeah.
just tying it to the buttons that are basically already there. So I think, another interesting thing you guys did was this vesting schedule on the airdrop, which sort of like bootstrapped the entire thing. I've always thought with, BitCloud and Friendtech, part of the fundamental problem is like the people getting involved early realize that there's going to be more people who are going to get involved and they're going to go and buy these tokens. So they're going to speculate that these tokens are going to go up. And then once those people come in, they buy the tokens, the price goes up. At a certain point,
Yeah.
someone says, okay, we're probably near the top, and they start selling. And then when those types of people sort of outweigh the new people who are coming in, it sort of has hit its peak and it starts crashing. And then it's just, it keeps going and it keeps unwinding. And then you're sort of dead. And you have to either start from like 10% or 5% of the peak and build from there in like a more enduring way. But that's just like very challenging. Obviously, we've seen like, Bitcoin go through these 90% plus crashes. We've seen, Solana,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, went through a 97 or something percent crash. That was ridiculous. And you have to be extremely resilient and have like a ton of people using like when Solana crashed, like people had already been building on it for a couple of years, right? And with Bitcoin, when Bitcoin crashed, like in the earlier days, 90+% or whatever, like people were so passionate about Bitcoin that you can sort of withstand that, 90% crash. But with something that's relatively new, a month old, two
Yeah.
months old, you just don't have the firepower really to come back from that initial sort of surge. So you guys made this 180-day vesting schedule on sort of like people to initially come in on Moxie. And at the very least, that should incentivize people to come back. You don't have to come back every day. Like it's not like they expire
Yeah.
every day if you don't claim them, but you should at least come back, once in a while for the first half year basically of this thing existing to claim your rewards. What was the thought process around the vesting schedule in particular, like making it the length that you did, potentially making it longer, enabling
Yeah.
people to use them actually to buy fan tokens, which is kind of an interesting decision. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah. So, okay, we tried to study kind of what was happening in the market over the last few years and different models. And the one thing that I saw, a lot of kind of the norm in the market over the last couple of years became that you do some massive airdrop of like 10% of the total supply, and and we saw all these examples over the last months. Like ZK Sync was a good example. Stark was another one, which like they give massive airdrops and like immediately everyone just dumps it. And so we had this phenomenon where you'd have like things would like hit the public markets and then immediately just the price would just get cut by 50% from what the opening price was, and then would just sit there just waiting for something to happen next. And we looked and said, okay, our goal is not, first of all, like, our whole team, all of our early backers, we're locked up for a year. We're not going anywhere. Like we want to build something long term. I'm investing tokens that I receive for building this protocol over the next like 45 months or something like that. So it's like I'm not going anywhere. And so we want to build something that's going to really win over the long term. And so we really believe that the success of this is based on builders. Its success is based on, the more people building on the protocol, the more people using the protocol, the more the long-term success will be reflected in things like markets. And so there's two things that we put in place. One is we basically had two parts of the airdrop. There's one of the airdrop, we called it airdrop 1, airdrop 2, but it really just became one. But the airdrop 1 was, we looked at everyone's engagement on Farcaster for the 90 days prior to the launch of Moxie, as measured by their not a token points earned, and we gave them an allocation of 5% of the tokens. And that was intended, let's reward people who, based on how much engagement, how much they're receiving on Farcaster, so on actual value they've been providing to the network. We also factored in people who build great frames and things like that. And then we took another 5% of the token supply and we allocated to what we called a builders program, where builders could apply in a frame that we had for the builders program. And the criteria were you had to have either launched a frame or built something at Farhack, or host a channel with more than a certain number of followers, or there was like criteria that were both on the community side as well as on the kind of the pure building kind of development side. And 1,236 people applied for and qualified for the builders program. So it was like, okay, we got like the kind of the really hardcore kind of like tried and true Farcaster builders. And we split 5% amongst that 1,236 people, 5%. And then 53,000 people qualified based on the engagement. So that was another 5%. And so this is this distribution across 53,000 people, where some people at that top like 1,200 got a lot of tokens in the airdrop based on being true builders, and then others based on their engagement. And then we said, okay, what we don't want is for everyone just to dump these. What we want them to do is be committed, have a skin in the game, a vested interest in our success and in building something great together at Farcaster. So we said, okay, well, what if we could design this in a way where we have the airdrops vest over 180 days with like 180th unlocking every day, but the exception being that you can at any time use your locked Moxie, the ones that haven't invested yet, in the protocol. So if you want to use them for the intended purpose of the protocol, which is buying fan tokens and supporting people as fans, then you can do so. And that took some mechanics with the smart contracts, and but we did that, and it's been a huge success so far. And we to put in perspective, there's been something like 70 million worth of airdrops, actually a little less than that, 60 million worth of airdrops unlocked so far. And there's nearly 200 million TVL of Moxie in the protocol. So people are way more using the protocol than they are unlocking the airdrops.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that was pretty important. Like whenever I've seen any of these prior examples, to your point, I just wondered there needs to be like some kind of lockup or some kind of vesting, because otherwise it's just all too at once and too fast. I think, I know we're coming up on time here. I think one valuable question for people to hear your answer to would be basically, what are, for someone who's on Farcaster, pretty active, they have, they didn't just join last week, they've been on there for a while, they've seen a bunch of experiments, but they've only kind of seen chatter about Moxie. They haven't really gotten involved yet. What are like sort of the first, second, and third things that you would have them do where, a lot of this, it can just be, you feel like if you don't understand exactly how the rewards are split or exactly how to get involved with the fan token auction, you're sort of scared to participate because there's like so much going on, like you don't know what to do. I know that's not true because I've participated to a pretty high degree without really understanding all of it necessarily. Preparing for this conversation and having it has certainly been helpful, but I still don't feel like I have everything like completely on lock, but I've been able to do a bunch of things without, any of that. So for people who, don't necessarily need to understand all of it, like what's the first, second, third thing that you would have them do?
Yeah. So the first thing, I would go to Airstack, look at the leaderboard. There's a leaderboard on Airstack that shows how many rewards people are earning every single day based on people engaging in their content and in their frames. And then so that's number one, is like kind of see like who are the people on the platform who are kind of scoring high amount of Moxie rewards every single day. And then you can decide, okay, which of these behaviors do you want to emulate, right? Do you want to try to be like the people who are earning a lot from casting? Okay, well then study like what is the content they're creating? What are the people are kind of taking a shine to, and kind of figure out how do you kind of win as a content creator. Second is you can say, okay, I see people who are succeeding at frames. What kind of frames are they building? So you can succeed as like a frame dev. And the third is if you say, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do either of those two, then instead buy the fan tokens of the people who you see succeeding, and you can participate in their success. And so the model is purposely meant to be kind of built this way where, you might, when people say, wow, I've got on this platform and I have no followers, and like this can be really hard for me to start earning rewards because I got to build up the following and people, who's going to like my content or engage with it. Like the easy way to kind of like skip the line is to participate in the success of others while you start building up your own. And I will say, that people say, gosh, it can be really hard when you join a new social network to figure out, how do you stand out? How do you break through? But we have seen time and time again, we see it every single day. We see people who they're creative, they bring something to the table that is new, it's refreshing, and whether it's a meme or whether it's an article or whether it's a point of view, and we see them earning like right away. And then the other thing I'd say is just consistency is key with anything, right? If you show up and you expect that, hey, I'm going to earn, $1,000 a week just from showing up, like the world doesn't work like that. You got to put in the work, every single day and kind of find your voice. The other thing I'd say is, and I was really early on Twitter. I was in Twitter in 2007. And what I did at first, which was the wrong thing to do, and what other people said, was like, I just started replying to all the big guys and hoping that they would kind of reply back. And so maybe that would like get me more engagement, get me more followers. And it really doesn't work unless you're kind of adding something really new and refreshing to the conversation. And then there was like this one day where I wrote a blog post and a tweet, like a tweet storm or whatever it was at the time, which was like top 10 things I learned from raising a pre-seed round, and it went viral. I'm like, okay, I found my voice, right? And I'd say like the key thing is if you want to win as like a creator, you have to find your voice. And if and that voice has to be unique and compelling to a lot of people, and that's and if not, then there's other ways you can play. And we purposely designed the system where you can play on both sides. You can play by being a creator, you can play by being a dev, you can play by just being a fan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to get involved. So if you're, like you said, if you're a dev, if you just like doing content, whatever you want to do, building frames, you can do all of it and incorporate Moxie in some way. I would even add, just as a last bit, sort of my first three steps, because I think you're so deep in it as like the creator of this thing. For me, like not knowing quite as much, I think the first thing I did was I found the frame that allowed me to claim my Moxie pass. So is that pinned that's pinned on Airstack channel?
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, like you go to Airstack is the creators of Moxie. We use the Airstack channel as a place for all communication. If you go there, you can pick up a Moxie pass. You could also go to the moxie.xyz website, grab a Moxie pass. A Moxie pass is basically just a free ticket to play Moxie. But you have to have that ticket in order to play. It's an NFT that you're going to mint, and you can't send it to anyone else. You can only use it yourself. And then the second thing is there's a cast action called Moxie. Real basics. And in that cast action, you can see how much rewards you earn every day, as well as it's like a launch pad for all types of Moxie functions. So if you go to like your settings on Warpcast, there's a thing called actions. You download the Moxie cast action and you can go from there.
Yeah, those I know they're basics to you, but they're important to me. I
Yeah,
was
no,
like,
I
I
get it.
see
I
all
get
this
it. I'm in the
chatter. I'm
weeds.
like, how do I
Yeah,
play this game? You get the
yeah.
pass, you get the cast action, and then through the cast action, you basically click. If you haven't used cast actions, they're actually really useful in certain cases. So you click the cast action on basically any cast anywhere. It's these four boxes, sort of on the right-hand side of any cast near the bottom, sort of like across from the like button and everything. And you click that, and then you pick the Moxie one, and you can basically do everything. I think you can do almost everything, if not everything, that you need to do through that. So like one of the first things I did was after getting the Moxie pass, getting the cast action, I claimed my airdrop. The first part of it, the vested part of it or whatever. And then I've gone back a few times and I've claimed rewards. And that was all I did for a while. And then,
Yeah.
more recently, like I bought your fan token. I see how much I earned and how much I've invested. You can sort of like see the stats in there. You can bid on auctions. So you can just, sort of take one step deeper into the water each time you go back to the cast action maybe, but getting the Moxie pass, getting the cast action, claiming your airdrop if you're eligible. Then actually one final small little question, but can you, I've had these rewards that I can claim every time I go back to the cast action. Basically, I don't go
Yeah.
back more than once a day or something like that. So every time I go back, there's something. Is that from the airdrop becoming? I think part of it's from the airdrop on vesting, or vesting rather. Is there a part of that even though there's no like Jake fan token yet, for the reward splits and everything? But
Yeah.
am I still earning on my casts regardless? I don't have a fan token, so it's not like going to my fans or anything, but is it just going to me?
Yeah, so a couple things there. So when you go in the cast action, there's one button called balance, and you click the button that says balance. It will enable you to check on if you were eligible for for the first airdrop. You can check on it and also see what amounts can now be claimed. Also, what amounts you can be using to buy fan tokens with the unlock portion. Then there's another button that button is top left. At the bottom right, there's a button called rewards, and that button will tell you how many rewards you earned 24 hours ago for any engagements that happen on your casts, or your frames if you're a developer. And you don't need to have a fan token yourself to be earning rewards. Everyone's earning rewards. And then today, actually, in a few minutes, we're actually going to make it self-service for anyone to launch their own fan tokens for themselves or their channel. So far, it's been curated by our team. We've had over 5,000 requests for fan tokens, and we've launched like 400 of them. And we're going to enable anyone to launch them, and then we'll see what happens next in this kind of permissionless phase.
Nice. Well, very cool update there. So I don't know if by the time this is out, that'll probably
It
already
should
be
be, yeah, it
active.
should be live already. Yeah,
So you can
yeah,
go and
yeah,
launch your own fan token. But yeah, I think there's plenty of places to get started. We just mentioned a few. So yeah, it's hopefully gonna be fun and interesting for people who've already been doing, like we said, all the stuff that's sort of meant to be done with Moxie on Farcaster for a long time. It's basically just be active, be interesting, build things,
yeah.
and go from there. So Anyway,
I gotta jump.
Yeah.
This was awesome, and I'm happy to do it again at any time. Just let me know.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jason. It's great having you on. I appreciate the time, and best of luck with Moxie.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.